Welcome to today's special edition podcast, Memorial Day, honoring the living and the dead. We will return to our current series, The Things We Live For, but I couldn't let this special day pass without pausing for a moment to remember all those we should be honoring, not just on Memorial Day, but every day of the year. Pictures speak 1,000 words, so I will uncharacteristically keep my words to a minimum and let the images speak for themselves. Just look at this week's article as more of a giant scrapbook than a typical essay. At the temple, there is a poem called Loss, carved into the stone. It has 3 words, but the poet has scratched them out. You cannot read loss, only feel it. Quote from Memoirs of a Geisha. If you'd like to follow along, since this is mostly a scrapbook of photo collages I've made, feel free to go to my Substack, Views of an Outsider, to see the images we're talking about. The top left corner is my brother Paul, July 4th, 1981 through April 6th, 1994. The top right is my mom Diane, December 7th, 1945. Through September 5th, 2019. Middle pictures are my mom and Paul, and then their graves. The bottom left is my mom and me, and the bottom right is the carving of an angel my mom had commissioned next to my brother's headstone. Then I have a collage of some really awesome Toby Keith photos, who did so much to lift the spirits of our active servicemen who were and are making sacrifices every day, July 8th, 1961, through February 5th, 2024. The heroes we honor today are those buried at Arlington, those represented at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and all those across this land who made the ultimate sacrifice for others. Along with our surviving heroes, who likewise pay a heavy price to make a difference, and to make the world a better place for people they have never met, as they have done since they began this home of the brave as the land of the free, until the day they made it true in 1864. Never surrendering in their fight against oppression and evil, they stormed the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, amid a torrent of machine gun fire, through the complete terror of seeing their friends massacred all around them. They fight on, not to end the life of an enemy, but to save the life of a brother, and so that we don't have to fight ourselves, but can sleep safe and peaceful each night under the blanket of freedom they buy with their life's blood. Real heroes don't wear capes. They wear dog tags. But today we honor not only those we have lost, but those who are still within our power to save. Please decide to not let the loudest voices be the only ones that are heard. I beg you to join your voice to mine and to others to save those who need it the most. These are the 5 American hostages which our nation has forgotten. Keith Siegel, Sagi Chen, Hirsch Poland, Omar Nutra, and Edon Alexander are being held and tortured in Gaza. Our brothers do not have much time left, and we have let half a year go by. Their own president, Joe Biden, has abandoned them to their fate. But he is also our president. He works for us, not the other way around. Please join me in demanding that he does whatever it takes to save them from their fate, the fate of 45 other Americans who died on October 7th, and the other known 7 American hostages believed to now be dead at the hands of Hamas. He did whatever was necessary to save an American athlete who broke Russia's laws from being held by them. We expect the same effort for the innocent civilian hostages. The current hostages represent more than 25 countries, not just Israel. And they adhere to at least 4 different religions. As varied as the victims of the massacre itself, each is a uniquely irreplaceable soul that was snuffed out too soon. Biden's weak moral murkiness has allowed our campuses to explode with anti-Semitic violence, which has been paid for and planned by extremists with known ties to Hamas itself, who openly refer to these same protesters as useful idiots. Many of these imported protesters have done this before at violent Antifa riots. But some people are fighting all the lies with the fire of the truth and tracing the money to its source, exposing the frightening reality that terrorists are funding many of the institutions that teach our young people to chant Intifada, Intifada, from the river to the sea, a call for ethnic cleansing in the form of genocide, and death to America. They supply the matching tents, instruct the students on how to cosplay a conflict of which they are entirely ignorant of even the most basic facts, and lead non-religious white liberal students in Muslim prayers as a way of proving their fealty to the radical cause. These activists support Hamas in taking Hirsch Goldberg Poland captive after taking him hostage at a music festival devoted to peace and unity. Now, minus his left arm, which he lost at that music festival, his parents haven't seen him in 234 days. They are openly begging the world to help them. He attended the music festival with Honor, who died heroically, tossing back 7 grenades out of the bomb shelter into which they had been thrown, where they were hiding. Hirsch lost his arm, but fought on to somehow survive. He sent his family a short, final text message. "I love you guys. I'm sorry." Hirsch is just 23 years old. He has a plane ticket bought and ready to go for the adventure he has been planning his entire adult life, a celebratory exploration of the world. He may not live to take that trip much longer, unless we put as much pressure on the politicians as the squeaky wheel radicals are irresponsibly doing. And Hirsch is far from the only hostage taken on October 7th, nearly 7 months ago. Tearing down posters of victims does not erase the atrocities done that day, so long as we remember them. The youngest hostage would be only a year and a half old, having spent a third of his life as a prisoner, and he's believed to be dead. The oldest is a grandfather in his mid-80s. Hostages have been brutally raped and had their ankles cut to prevent their escape. And not even outspoken feminists have rallied to their cause. Let us pledge this Memorial Day to help the living while we still can. Sharon was taken hostage with her husband David and their 3-year-old twin daughters that day, along with her sister and niece. She and her daughter were traded in the only hostage exchange that Hamas has agreed to, out of the countless ones offered. As her daughters admittedly have begun to give up on asking for their father, David and his brother are beginning to run out of time. Even as protesters tear down posters of the real human beings who are suffering so much as to be unimaginable, even as they accost their families trying to plead their case before the UN, the families of hostages continue to beg the world not to forget the people they love most of all. They are all pleading for our help. October 7th was a day of unimaginable, animalistic ecstasy in brutality. There is no scenario that can be conceived of that would justify it. Note the date of these headlines. The media began trying to turn public opinion less than a month after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust ended. and presidents of our most elite universities openly refuse to enforce their own anti-violence codes of conduct on behalf of their Jewish students, or even the mandatory civil rights statutes of the federal government. This war is not the result of occupation. It's the result of the indoctrination of children from birth, as overseen by the UN's own UNRWA, who participated on October 7th, and in holding child hostages prisoner, and in hiding the bodies of victims in their own buildings, which they connected to the terror tunnels, after indoctrinating Palestinian children to believe that dying as a suicide bomber was the greatest way to serve God. Adding to the brutal deaths of those massacred, acts of anti-Semitic violence have increased by 388% in America, and by more than 700% on college campuses. Yet Biden consistently prefers to discuss the non-existent but potential threat of a rise in Islamophobia, instead of the current and existing problem that is actually occurring right now. The images of those massacred in their cars and homes led Mossab Youssef, whom I have previously written about, to speak out about the biased lies of the media and of political elites, even against his own father, one of Hamas's co-founders, insisting that he will take the moral stand, not the political or personal one. Footage of the October 7th carnage are the worst, most unimaginable sights I have ever personally watched with my own two eyes. UNRWA's openly anti-Semitic education is costing the lives of both Israeli and Palestinian children. Having been extremely effective, it is ensuring that the violence will live for at least another generation. UNICEF has merely abandoned the victims among Jewish children, while the UN's history of blatant anti-Semitism is all well documented, and the International Criminal Court is forcing countries to enforce arrest warrants on Israeli government officials based on provably false allegations drawn up by Mrs. George Clooney, their attorney. Germany has voiced its eagerness to enforce these warrants, which must distress them given their feelings in the past when it came to rounding up and arresting Jews. Extreme though it may sound to those unaware of their long record of despicable moral rot, it is time to dissolve the UN, or at the least, for the USA to leave it and take our tax dollars with us. The UN is making the world a more dangerous place instead of a safer one. Meanwhile, some students cosplay as casualties of a war on the other side of the world. And we are also seeing the worst of the worst in genocidal bigotry spoken by a previously unseen, homegrown, intentionally radicalized terrorist base here in the USA and throughout the Western world. And we must wake up to the real danger they pose to us all, not just to Jews. The children of our Jewish neighbors have been beaten, disrespected, spat on, attacked, barred from classrooms, and have even been chased and forced to barricade themselves inside libraries from mobs baying for their blood. Muslim extremists have been unashamedly brutal, egged on by AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, and Ilhar Omar in our own Congress, while non-Muslim students indoctrinated with an overdose of white guilt have been equally as extreme. Some former extremists have spoken up, calling out the ugliness within their own culture or religious groups. But their fellow woke religion adherents refuse to listen to any heresy. They mock, insult, and hate, but fail utterly to either make their case or listen to those who do. Even when confronted with the names and faces of victims, or the facts of either history or the present, they show no humanity or compassion for victims, only an ongoing attempt to justify the unjustifiable with a lot of empty buzzwords. They don't even reevaluate the morality of their activism when confronted with their own lack of knowledge on the subject. Through simple questions like, which river and which sea? Or, when was the country of Palestine established? Most have never watched any of the October 7th footage, read any of the history, or know what the intifada they are calling for over bullhorns is. They claim to speak up only out of a compassion for Palestinian children, but they fight to preserve the Palestinians' oppressors, Hamas, who murder their own children with the suicide vests that they are too cowardly to wear themselves. Their ignorant interference condemns Palestinian children to death as much as it did the innocent Jewish child in that car seat, or the rape victim left posed after their brutal murders, some as young as 11 or 13 years old. The extent of the extremism being taught is best seen in a kindergarten graduation in Palestine, which is horrifying beyond all words. As they hunt down their fellow students playing the role of Jewish civilians, proving that the only hope for this radically saturated population is a slow denazification process. It's the only hope the survivors of this fifth Gazan war have of not dying in the next one. They are so radicalized by hate that their small children verbally assault armed IDF soldiers rather than fear them, as would be the natural response of a normal child traumatized by war. Which explains how Hamas was elected in the first place, and why Hamas and the October 7th massacre both have well over a 70% approval rating in both Gaza and the West Bank. It casts into crystal clarity that we are decades away at best from Palestinians being ready for their own state, no matter what Spain, Ireland, or Norway pretend, while exposing what those of us who have followed this conflict over a lifetime already knew, that Abbas and the Palestinian Authority are no better than Hamas, and no more capable of running a government or a country. Otherwise, these children will be the next generation's monsters, like this October 7th predator. So please, let's honor the dead this Memorial Day by doing 3 things. 1, save the Palestinian children from their abusive brainwashers by eliminating these child killers. 2, save our own youth from their abusive brainwashing and our country from the dangerous terrorists funding this indoctrination by unanimously condemning it and all who participate in it, and by uncompromisingly rooting it out. And 3, by bringing all the pressure of the entire world combined down on Hamas to save the surviving hostages by any means necessary, making it clear that we will give nothing and negotiate on nothing, no matter how much sympathy we feel for those suffering amidst a war, until every hostage is returned. I had a heartfelt concern for 32-year-old Sherry Bibas from the first moment I saw her clutching her 2 red-headed babies in terror, surrounded by Hamas killers on October 7th. Ariel was 4, and Kafur, at 9 months old, was the youngest hostage taken. Their 35-year-old husband-father, Yarden, could not save his family because he was already a hostage elsewhere. I was brokenhearted to hear the news when Hamas announced that Sherry and both of her innocent babies were dead. Yarden survives. I very much wish we could bring them back. that they could be given a chance to live the life they should have led. But if they are gone, we cannot bring them back, nor any of those we have lost. We can only mourn and pray that their souls are at peace and free from the suffering that dominated the last weeks of their life. But the living can still be saved. If Hamas finds itself without a single ounce of sympathy or support, not a single concession by a united and fed up world. I've seen my loved ones in coffins. I've buried them in the dirt and lived with a suffocating lump in my throat since then. Please don't let these people go through that just to avoid controversy. Make a difference this Memorial Day. I beg you. Please forward this article or a better one to your congressman, senator, or even the president. Or just forward it or another one to your friends. Use your voice to make a difference for the better. You can find your congress member or senator at www.congress.gov/members/find-your-member. To contact Rashida Tlaib, call 202-225-5126 or go to tlaib.house.gov. For AOC, call 202-225-3965 or go to ocasio-cortez.house.gov. To contact Ilhan Omar, call 202-225-4755 or go to omar.house.gov. For Cori Bush, call 202-225-2406 or go to bush.house.gov. For Jamal Bowman, call 202-225-2464 or go to bowman.house.gov. And or go to www.whitehouse.gov/contact or call for comments 202-456-1111, for the switchboard 202-456-1414, or for a TTY-TTD line comment, go to 202-456-6213 to forward this article or a better one to Joe Biden. These people work for us, and it's time they remembered that. Have a blessed Memorial Day.